Hi, my name is Adria. This is me with my grandmother years ago. She's one of the reasons I decided I had to make this video. See, she and I once got into a pretty heated argument about anti-Semitism. She had made the comment that anti-Semitism is still a big problem. But I truly believed at that point that society had evolved and progressed past this, so I assumed maybe her experience as a Holocaust survivor had just made her hypersensitive. Fast forward 20 years, and unfortunately, it turns out I was mistaken and she was correct. When it started to become evident to me was after the 2016 US elections, because during the months leading up to them, I had been actively supporting the far-left candidate Bernie Sanders, and as a result, I had gained over 3,000 new Facebook friends who had similar political views. It didn't take long before I began to notice something surprising and startling. What I began to notice was more and more of my leftist-leaning friends expressing increasingly hostile sentiments toward Israel. Having presumed that those on the left were the most progressive, I found this very confusing. So I decided to try to determine from where this negativity was coming. I had been hearing words like apartheid, occupation, ethnic cleansing, Nazism, genocide, and then over and over and over, the word Zionism used pejoratively. Now, having lived in Israel for a time, including in the West Bank, and having had the experience of doing a bit of training with the IDF, I knew that the things I was hearing and reading my friends saying were completely contrary to what I saw when I was there. But even though I knew that what was being said made no sense and had no resemblance to the reality I experienced, the vehemence with which these notions were being expressed caused me to reconsider the possibility that maybe they were true. For the next several months, I became obsessed with research. I spent probably 15 to 20 hours a day on it and did little else besides learning everything I could. I looked to newspaper archives, original source documents, reports, quotes, and verifiable records and evidence, as well as personal first-hand witness accounts. I learned a lot about this complex situation, and I decided that despite having no film or video editing skills, I would try my best to share the knowledge I'd gained in the most distilled and digestible way I could. This became 2 films, of which this is the second. The first part looks at the historical and legal questions, as well as the question of Israel's legitimacy and title to the territory, based upon verifiable evidence, records, newspaper archives, and a pattern of corroborating accounts from people like FDR, Winston Churchill, Mark Twain, Lord Peel, and many others. We looked at the League of Nations, the mandate system, and the reasons behind the legitimacy of Israel's title to the territory. If you have not viewed that one yet, I recommend you start there and then return to this video afterward, as it contains the basic historical background and context of this issue. In this video, I want to discuss the typical accusations levied against Israel in a very straightforward and logical way. Let me start out by saying I believe most people who make these accusations are decent and good, and are only trying to fight for human rights and the oppressed. However, in the same way that a doctor ought not make a diagnosis nor prescribe any remedy until a full medical history is taken and blood analysis is done, the rhetoric I was hearing is a cautionary tale against the foolish tendency to form a conclusion on such a complex situation without proper knowledge. As much as their hearts may be in the right place, the reality is that they are not helping the Palestinians, but are instead unknowingly contributing to their further oppression, as well as to the murder of Jews. I understand that if you're one of these people, this statement might seem shocking to you. But because I am sure you would want to know if your good intentions were being used by malicious actors to further such an agenda, I am positive you will make sure to do your due diligence by listening to this information. Of course, if you hate Jews, then you hate Jews. What can I say? If that's the case, well, that's your prerogative. You may want to go ahead and move along, though, because this video is not for you. On the other hand, if you're someone who is rational, reasonable, and decent, then I urge you to simply listen to what I have to say as objectively as possible. In fact, I encourage you to go ahead and try to disprove anything I'm about to tell you.